Good Wednesday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. April snow showers bring May football, at least here in Cleveland. We're going to talk plenty of Browns with Ellis Williams, the Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the page of the Plain Dealer. A little later in the show, we will be joined by the voice of the Columbus Clippers, Ryan Mitchell. We will talk about some of the guys down into Columbus to keep an eye on as they get ready to begin the minor league season in a couple of weeks. But we begin by talking Browns. Kevin Stefanski met with the media yesterday. One of the topics of discussion, Jadeveon Clowney, the guy the Browns wanted, the guy that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry went out and got, and they're happy they have him.
I do think he's versatile enough to play inside and outside. He's shown that over the course of his career. He's a disruptive football player in the run and the pass game. He's somebody that over the many years, and certainly the last few, has seen a lot of attention. Teams have slid to him. They've put a tight end in there to chip, or the running back. So we feel like he'll have opportunities here playing opposite Miles that should help him in the pass game. But he's a disruptive player, so excited to add him to the front.
Kevin Stefanski talking about Jadeveon Clowney, the defensive lineman that the Browns signed. Let's bring in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Ellis, what do you think of that? I know you've looked at Clowney on tape. What are the Browns getting?
Disruptive is the perfect word to describe Jadeveon Clowney and what I anticipate him bringing to Cleveland. What we got to get out of the way first is Clowney's injury history. And I understand the receipt of injuries is starting to pile up, the list of procedures from knees to elbows to backs. I get it. But from 2015 through 2019, Clowney played in at least 13 games. He's got a couple 13s in there, a couple 15s, and one 16-game season. I compare the worry of Clowney's injury history to what goes on with Odell Beckham Jr. I understand that Odell has missed a lot of games over the past 4 years, but he also played all 16 games in 2019. And with Clowney, we got to keep in mind a guy like Denzel Ward also just misses 4 games a year. He's literally played 12 games all through the years he's been in the league. So I'm going to push that to the side a little bit, keep it in mind, but I don't think it's a trump card to say, oh, no, Clowney isn't going to work here in Cleveland. Because when he's on the field, and as he said in his introductory presser, when he's around that 70 to 90% range, he really is a difference maker, a guy who he thinks is capable of winning Defensive Player of the Year, a guy who he thinks is capable of winning an all-pro spot alongside Myles Garrett. I think that is an all-time high, of course, would be an apex for Clowney. But I think there's a sweet spot for him to have a Pro Bowl year, which would make it a reinvention in a career-like year for him, and he'll do that by disrupting the run game. He is quick with his twitch. He's got a go-to patent swing move he relies on. He's got great play recognition, meaning he recognizes when the lineman in front of him steps a certain way, what kind of run that may be, whether to expect a pulling guard or if it's going to be downhill, wide zone, or a trap inside. He is studied in that way. And I just think he's a one-of-a-kind athlete. Again, like Odell Beckham Jr., there's just not a lot of guys in this league that when they're at their best can disrupt and make plays that he does, and it's because of his natural athleticism.
And you wrote, you think he could potentially have a career year. Do you see the versatility as well that the Browns were talking about, liking him?
Definitely. I definitely do. He's a guy who can play inside and out. I think they'll primarily use him on the outside because he becomes such an inside defender by playing outside. He really likes to jackknife inside and cross the face of opposing defensive tackles and really take the quickest point from starting outside alignment to the quarterback, which is that diagonal line. Really, he's not much of a looper. When you think of an edge rusher, you think of guys who get that arc, that real nice edge rushing arc. And he can do that, of course. But I'm just saying when he got to have it plays, when he really wants to trust his instincts to do something, he jackknifes the inside, which then allows him to create A-gap pressure while starting outside, which then makes you wonder, okay, well, who's got outside contain? That stuff they're going to work out amongst themselves, but just the type of player he is, he can affect both spots, and he really affects the interior, even if he does start outside anyway.
It's no secret that the Browns play Lamar Jackson twice. They will have to face Josh Allen potentially. Patrick Mahomes if they want to get to where they are going, which, obviously is winning the AFC and getting to the Super Bowl. Is he the kind of guy that can run those guys down in space when you talk about an elite athlete?
Yeah, put Joe Burrow on that list too. Twice a year, a guy who wants to extend the play and can make some stuff happen with his feet, but also extends looking to throw. That's Mahomes, that's Allen, that's Burrow, as you mentioned at times. I think he can. Look, staying on the theme of athletes, to contain a guy like Lamar Jackson, you need your best 11 on the field, and Clowney is like that. On top of being an athlete, though, he also just has this motor that doesn't stop. There's a player broke down a run stop he had against the 49ers. A trap play they tried to hit the Seahawks inside on. Clowney's at left end over the right tackle, over the left tackle, and he just screams on the line, blows up the guard, and the play is a loss of 1. I thought that happened in the first quarter, or maybe in the first series when the guy's fresh. Turns out I had to watch the whole game because it happened in overtime. It was in the first series of overtime. 60 minutes wasn't enough. He still had stuff left in the tank. So that combination of motor, conditioning, and just being an elite athlete, I'm going to keep going back to that. He's different. And assuming health, Browns fans are about to find out what that looks like in Cleveland.
Let's talk a little bit about the line as a whole. What are your thoughts with the defensive line? What does it look like? How does it shake out?
Yeah, I think they got slightly better. I mean, losing Sheldon Richardson was a step back, but we can call Clowney 2 steps forward. So you net 1 there, maybe you net a half. I can see it being a push too, but only for this reason. I know I just told y'all not to worry about the Clowney injury history, but if you are going to consider it, then the argument is, well, the past 2 years, Clowney's kind of been iffy in terms of availability. Meanwhile, Sheldon Richardson has really been the model of consistency. That's the only concern I would have. But aside from that, it's not the defensive tackle is a spot they've completely remade. Larry Ogunjobi gone, Sheldon Richardson gone. In our Malik Jackson, Andrew Billings, and then Jordan Elliott's going to get a chance to prove himself in year 2. So between those 3, I think they replaced the production of Ogunjobi and Richardson just fine with the trio of Billings, Elliott, and Jackson.
Do you think there's any way that that the Browns can get Richardson back? Obviously, he's going and trying to find, a deal that was equal to the Browns when the Browns wanted to cut back his salary. Is there a scenario where Richardson comes back and then it's a huge plus?
It's a tough question to answer because I don't know what the number is. It's pretty clear that Andrew Berry's a line in the sand type of negotiator. They've got a number that they're comfortable and willing to bring Sheldon back at, but I don't know what it is. If it's 3 or 4 million, then Sheldon's probably going to find 7 or 8 million elsewhere. If it is 6 or 7 million or 6 with incentives up to 8, then perhaps Sheldon comes back because he's still looking for 10, 11, 12, or 13 like he was, probably not planning on getting this year in Cleveland, but came close to getting in Cleveland. So it's all about the numbers. If it comes close, I could see the Browns once again winning in the benefit of the doubt in the way they won with Troy Hill and John Johnson, guys turning down money to come to Cleveland because they're building a winner, on top of Sheldon being a part of that transformation. I have a feeling this place means a lot to him. But at the end of the day, it's about the bag, and if he gets anywhere close to double-digit millions, that's where he'll head because he's not getting that in Cleveland from Andrew Berry.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Ellis and I will talk some of the recent mock drafts who the national experts have going to the Browns. We will also talk about some positions and players on the Browns that will be impacted by this year's NFL draft. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us, talking Browns.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue to talk Browns football. We turn our attention to the upcoming draft. A little over a week away. It will be held here in Cleveland. Let's welcome back in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as plain dealer. Ellis, some new mock drafts. This one's kind of interesting. Mel Kiper, Todd McShay from ESPN did the dueling ones where they traded off picks, and first round, the Browns end up with Kwity Paye from Michigan. How excited do you think Andrew Berry and the guys would be if he is there at 26?
Kwity Paye would be a great fit in Cleveland. I worry he won't last to 26. He's a guy who I think is even the betting favorite for first defensive lineman off the board. So that would surprise me if he's there at 26, but he's the favorite to come off the board first at defensive line because of his talent, and he deserves to be there. And if he's able to join what the Browns are building, that'd be pretty impressive. I think he's on a short list of guys that could come in on day one and help this defensive line. And again, it's a short list.
The other thing is when you talk about athletes and kind of big guys that can run, Kwity Paye very much fits that mold, the defensive edge rusher from Michigan.
Yeah, and he's got some similar traits to Clowney where he's just an elite run defender. He'll grow into a pass rusher. He'll develop a bag and a complete set, but right away he's going to be stiff and stout against the run. And again, for those reasons, I just don't think he lasts at 26.
Interesting, they have a wide receiver from Auburn, Anthony Schwartz, going to the Browns in the second round. Take me through what Schwartz would be appealing to the Browns.
Yeah, Schwartz is on a group of tier 2 receivers that would make sense here in Cleveland. Dami Brown's another one. Elijah Moore got some buzz, but he's looking more like a first-round guy now. Nico Collins of Michigan. It's that list of players who don't provide the instant explosion and have that day one production that make you a round one selection. But finding that guy in the second or third round is probably going to be the Browns' sweet spot for receiver. And it works out. Chris Godwin and Kenny Golladay, 2 receivers from the 2018 class, a year when Corey Davis was the first receiver taken. Those are 2 of the best receivers in their class, and they were third-round selections. So the Browns can find something in round 2 or 3, and that list of guys that name is within that group of guys there.
So we'll look at Pete Prisco, CBSSports.com. He projects the Browns to take Christian Barrymore, interior defensive lineman, not an edge guy, more of a tackle from Alabama, young guy, real young guy, but generally regarded as the best interior defensive lineman in this draft, right?
Yeah, he is. Barrymore's a nasty player. He really gets after. He's got that Alabama motor. He really impresses on tape. But I would be quite surprised if the Browns went defensive tackle at 26. Like, they didn't cut Sheldon Richardson to then panic and select his replacement in the first round. That's just way too telegraphed of a move. I don't think that this front office thinks defensive tackle is all that important in the grand formula or scheme of winning a Lombardi trophy. So to invest a first round pick on a position you don't value in the first place, kind of like linebacker, and I've gotten off the first round linebacker. I don't think that's where they'll go, which we'll get to later. But for that same type of logic or following that same logic, I don't think defensive tackle and Barrymore would be the pick at 26 either.
Yeah, that would surprise me basically for the same reasons. Peter Schrager, NFL.com, has Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher from Miami. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, this is another mock I don't like. The position I think is more accurate, but diving into Rousseau, I see a very thin, stringy edge rusher that doesn't have much, if any, short area quickness and ability to change speed. I think he's got the frame, and that's not a think. It's obvious. He's got the frame. He's like 6'7". He's going to be able to put on some weight. He will grow into a quality end probably, but he's not a day one player to me. And at 26, I think that is more of a national narrative than someone who, like Andrew Berry and the Browns scouting department, has really sat down and watched the tape.
So let's switch our attention just a little bit. Some guys on the Browns roster, and this one comes from Bleacher Report. They have guys that will be impacted by the draft. So positions where the Browns are likely to load up could mean a couple years down the line. And right off the bat, they say wide receivers Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham will be impacted by the draft. That's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, it feels really accurate. You can take the draft out of the equation and just look what they're due. Both are going to be around that 30 million mark combined once again in 2022. And for a front office that I think the Sheldon Richardson cut is telling, Sheldon Richardson didn't come in here under Andrew Berry. That was a John Dorsey move. Odell and Jarvis Landry, also John Dorsey moves, meaning Andrew Berry came in here and was like, yeah, these are really good players and they're work for us now. But as we build this roster out, they do not align with our philosophies of roster building. I don't think they're going to pay D tackle. I don't think they'll pay wide receiver well. And that means drafting a guy this year or next year is likely signaling the heir apparent to the LSU duo in Beckham and Landry in Cleveland.
Another guy that they say, so Beckham, Landry were 1. 2 is Greedy Williams. And again, this makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense, but I would push back on any worry that Greedy wouldn't be on this roster or anything. Like Beckham and Landry are going to be cap casualties at some point. Greedy is a corner who, if he progresses, even in a lateral way, he is still a body you're going to keep on the roster just because how thin corner can get, how you really can't have enough of them like D-line, and he'd come at a fairly cap-friendly price, being a second-round pick. So do I think his playing time could be affected by who the Browns draft? Yeah, very much so, of course. But I don't think his long-term place on this roster is in any jeopardy, assuming he gets healthy.
And the third one on this Bleacher Report list, draft picks that will be affected or roster spots that will be affected by draft picks. Mack Wilson. And when we looked at Mack Wilson, I was surprised. His missed tackle rate was really, really high, and it went up from his first year to his second year, that's bad.
Yeah, and it's the exact opposite of what you want to see. Mack Wilson had a tough 2020 with everything going on from the injury to COVID, and just not being able to find a real spot in this Joe Woods defense. This training camp, these first 4 games are really going to be make or break and prove it territory for Mack Wilson, assuming he makes the roster. With Mack, it's really becoming a situation where he's just another body in that room, and they've got a lot of them. Sony Taki, Jacob Phillips, now Anthony Walker. And it's a position that the Browns don't really want to put on the field anyway. You watch the tape of John Johnson, he really doubles as a safety and a linebacker. So now if you're playing a 4-2-5 and John Johnson can serve as one of those linebackers, and now you can play a 4-1-6, well, now all you really need to do is find one linebacker that works. And again, between Phillips, Taki, Walker, and Wilson, it's going to get pretty competitive and quite crowded for Mack in that room.
Yeah, and so it will be interesting, and we'll get into what positions we think this front office values in a little bit. We're going to take a quick time out. Ellis Williams and I, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer, on the other side of the break. This time, though, we're going to talk about the off seasons that the AFC Central, or the AFC North, had. We will rank them. We will also talk about some guys that could be training camp casualties, some veterans who are going to have to fight to earn a spot on the Browns roster. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports for CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. Ellis, CBSSports.com ranked the AFC North and the off-seasons. Browns best in the division, followed by the Steelers, Bengals. They had the Ravens as having the weakest off-season. Just a reaction to that.
Yeah, I think the Ravens make a lot of sense. The Steelers were able to really retain the bulk of their defense aside from Bud Dupree, which everyone knew that wasn't going to happen anyway. They had some key rotational signings late. Really, Vince Williams being a starter for them at linebacker, but then Alu able to bring him back as well. I think the Bengals really had a push, and I think on paper it's a push, but then when you look or try to consider what's going on in team building sense of chemistry and culture, I just don't think it's ever that good of an idea to let your in-house talent walk, William Jackson and Carl Lawson, and then pay outside talent. I think your locker room sees that and they wonder like, all right, well, I'm not going to get a second or third contract from you guys. See AJ Green also. It's just not a good vibe to give throughout your organization, especially when you're a quote unquote rebuilding team. And then the Ravens have just been quiet. I actually would put the Ravens above the Bengals probably. They brought in Kevin Zeitler helping the interior of their line. Sammy Watkins at receiver, who we'll see how that goes. But, they're going to try and hit this draft and address their one hole that way. So consistent, not too splashy AFC North type free agency, but with Clowney coming in, it really puts the Browns over the top for why they probably had the best free agent period of the AFC North so far.
Well, if you look at it, they addressed all three levels of their defense with guys that have upgraded speed. If you looked at it and you said they need speed, John Johnson back end, Anthony Walker middle, Jadeveon Clowney up front. So I think they, again, I get what Andrew Berry is doing. So I see where that grade comes from.
Yeah, just rewatch the Kansas City Chiefs game if you want to understand how slow the Browns defense looked a year ago. You're exactly right. They consider Anthony Walker one of the fastest linebackers in football. John Johnson and Troy Hill get sideline to sideline because they have to. They're defensive backs. And then we already went over Clowney's freakish athleticism. He's the type of end that can get tackles 12 yards downfield if he has to. So I completely understand what they're doing. And again, you see a theme and a rhyme and reason to how they're building. And you really don't see that in Cincinnati. And then the Ravens and Steelers are always sound, and the Browns have finally joined them.
Do you see what's your perception of the upgrade of the defense? I guess that's the best way. Let me ask it to you that way.
They are strategically plugging holes, and they're doing it with bargain finds with real upside. Troy Hill's a guy who's 30, who is going to have an ability to prove himself either as an outside corner or a slot guy, depending on what happens to Cordero Williams. John Johnson is, I think, on the new frontier of an inefficient safety market, guys who can play both linebacker and safety well. I remind listeners, when you call a player or a prospect versatile, that doesn't mean they're good at any of the things that they're versatile at. John Johnson, in this new world of safeties that I think the Browns are really trying to find, both in Ronnie Harrison and Grant Delpit as well, are guys who can double as both above average coverage safeties and above average linebacking play, which is just really hard to do. You're literally playing two positions. And then the defensive line's been completely remade. And I talked about how that was, 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of situation, which nets you a positive. So overall, they are just a much more sound unit. Clowney perhaps gives you some turnover upside, which this team was good at creating turnovers a year ago, but that usually isn't sustainable year to year if you keep the same players. But this is, again, a remade defensive line, so that helps. But it's still a team that's going to win with their offense. But now they've got added playmakers where if they do need a stop in the fourth quarter because they didn't get the ball last, now you have a lot more faith that they're going to be capable of doing that.
So let's turn our attention a couple of guys that people think could be cut before the season begins. This one's by BrownsNation.com. First on the list, Chris Hubbard. Just a reaction to that one.
Yeah, I think maybe his injury would be the reason he's on that list, if that's it, because that's really all I can think of. Chris Hubbard was really valuable to this team. That swing tackle spot is vital, a guy who can come in and play guard, play tackle on a moment's notice. If Hubbard's gone, that means they found a way to replace him, and I don't know who that would be right now. That he's not on the roster, so we'll see. So that would be surprising. And then, did you already mention Cordero Hodge, or are we getting to that one?
Yeah, Cordero Hodge. So what do you? That's the second one.
Yeah, with Hodge, it's interesting. I would be surprised if Hodge is cut. If Hodge is cut, it means they drafted a wide receiver, and they drafted one high. And that would also, it just makes me wonder what that means for Rashard Higgins, because Cordero Hodge is a guy, first of all, that they were playing in front of Rashard Higgins just from the jump last year. So whether they've shifted their internal evaluations of those two players, I don't know yet. Second, Hodge is an excellent special teams player, and that is a huge factor in determining and finalizing these 53-man rosters and game day activations. And Rashard Higgins, he plays one position, and it's outside wide receiver. I'm not saying Higgins is going to get cut, but if we're going to talk Hodge being cut, I think you got to mention Rashard Higgins and just where is the value of having a number 4 receiver that doesn't play special teams either.
Ellis Williams and I going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll find out who Ellis thinks the Browns should take at 26, some of the biggest needs for the Browns, and positional value, how this roster will be built. We'll decode that. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football, NFL draft with Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com as well as plain dealer Ellis Williams. So Ellis, when we look at this, who do you think the Browns, who do you like at 26? Who do you think the Browns should pick? What positions are you looking at? Take me through it.
Yeah, this is all going to come down to how the board falls. The Browns are really in a spot where they don't have any glaring needs. I would say outside corner is probably the only one you can put there. And for that reason, I think they lean corner. Now, again, going back to how the board falls, if you're in a position to grab like a Rashad Bateman of the U of M, the Gophers, it's funny, listeners here probably, that's my Minnesota showing. I don't think anyone outside Minnesota calls it the U of M other than me, but we'll let that slide. If Bateman's there, he's a guy that you could just see like, all right, you know, we didn't expect him to be here. We have needs at outside corner. Adding an edge rusher would help, but we can't pass on this kid. I think Bateman, and this is not my Minnesota showing, I can admit when my bias comes out, I don't see a big difference between Bateman and Jamar Chase. And there's talk Jamar Chase goes as high as 5, the LSU receiver. So Bateman is an example of if a guy falls, I compare it to the CeeDee Lamb situation a year ago in Dallas. You know, the Cowboys had no plans of drafting a receiver. All of a sudden, Lamb's there, and no one regrets that choice. So I think if a guy like that falls, and Bateman's really one of the only guys on that list that would make me think offense. If it's not offense, they're going to go with cornerback, I think. I explained why I don't think linebackers are real importance. Clowney coming in doesn't make defensive line a must. And the question marks at Greedy Williams really are the only things that have been unanswered. If, you know, Denzel Ward misses 4 games a year, Greedy Williams' health is up in the air. Now all of a sudden you just have Troy Hill. You need a corner. So for that reason, I think they go corner. And the names I'm looking at, Greg Newsome, Asante Samuel Jr. is a name you got to consider there at 26. For some reason, if Caleb Farley, the corner who has had recently had back surgery, he's dropping down some boards. I think he's the physically most talented corner, but he may fall due to injury reasons. He's a guy you got to watch there. I think the top 2 corners, Surtain and J.C. Horn, won't be available to the Browns at 26 or even, you know, moving up to 20. They're going to be gone between 10 and 16. So those are 3 names to watch. Farley, Asante Samuel Jr. and Newsome at corner. That's where I'd go at 26.
Now I know you mentioned the linebackers. There's some reports that guys like Zaven Collins have bulked up to a defensive end type. We've talked about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Could you see them taking a hybrid guy like that and thinking, okay, you know, on first down, he might be a linebacker, and on second down, Koramoah would be a safety and Collins would be an edge rusher. Could you see a hybrid like that? I
can. Let's start with Koramoah. One thing with him is I think he really is a safety. I get that he's being looked at as a linebacker, and when ESPN broadcasts his name being called, he'll have LB next to his name, but I think he's a safety. And for the Browns to bring in another one of those types, like a Ronnie Harrison, would look, if they all 4 can play at the same time, then go for it. But I just think there becomes a log jam there. So then when you look at Zaven Collins, actually glad you brought him up on a call today with a conference call with Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network. He said he's hearing that Collins is going to be gone, you know, before pick 20. That bulking up has really made him look like an Anthony Barr type, Jamie Collins type, Kyle Van Noy, and he's probably going to be gone between 10-20. So the Browns probably don't even have a shot at him. And then I don't think they need to add another safety type.
When you look at this roster, what would you add? So you mentioned cornerback. What else would you add?
Yeah, you can never have enough defensive linemen. You can't. And I've already addressed what this team thinks about the interior of the defensive line. So if they're going to add another body, it's going to be on the outside. But again, this is just a team that doesn't have a lot of holes. So I think outside corners a must. I could see them adding a receiver. Sneakily, they probably could use another tight end, though you're not going to pick one high, but I could see, going to the third round there. They're going to just keep adding these auxiliary pieces and trying to build long-term. This is a draft where even at 26, Browns fans shouldn't expect a guy to come in and contribute. If this team's going to win a Super Bowl, the roster they have intact is what's going to get them there. Would you want your pick 26 to contribute in some ways? Yeah, sure. If a receiver comes in and gets 15 snaps a game, 10 snaps a game, all right. If a defensive end comes in and does about the same, sure. But this draft is about the future, and I'm actually more interested in what last year's rookie class becomes this year than what the 2021 class could do for the 2021 season.
Yeah, there are going to have to be some positions, as we mentioned, with all good teams. Eventually, guys have to get paid, so you're going to have guys leaving, and you have to have people that you're comfortable moving up. So we talked about positions we didn't think the Browns would pay based on how they're doing things. What are the positions you think that that this front office values and they will pay?
Yeah, I think the Sheldon Richardson cutting shows exactly what the Browns value inside this front office. There's 4 players eligible for extension coming up here pretty soon. Of course, quarterback Baker Mayfield, cornerback Denzel Ward, running back Nick Chubb, and guard Wyatt Teller. And I think going down the list, that's exactly what they value. And we can throw safety in there because they've invested high draft capital in one, Grant Delpit. They traded for another in Ronnie Harrison, and then they paid John Johnson. So quarterback, cornerback, guard, and safety, which is really just the offensive line. They invested high at tackle a year ago too, in both sides. So O-line, and then the running back situation is going to be really interesting, but I don't think you really can look at Nick Chubb just as a running back. He's a weapon, a special player at that. So they're going to value that just because of what he brings. But, a cookie cutter running back, which Kareem Hunt isn't either, I don't think they'd value that.
It's really interesting, the influx of TV revenue that will drive up the cap comes at a very good time for Browns fans.
It does, and it's a reason for the front office to be patient. They know this money's coming in. There's really no rush to pay Baker Mayfield or Denzel Ward right now. Perhaps you try to work something out with Nick Chubb and just address your short-term stuff quicker. The Nick Chubb contract isn't going to be 5 years. It's going to be a 3-year deal probably. So I could see them addressing that, and then you keep waiting. And even if Baker Mayfield keeps improving, which I honestly expect, and he bets on himself, and the contract becomes a little more expensive next year at this time than if you would have done it right now, you've got the revenue money coming in anyway.
Yeah, it's money well spent for the Browns in the front office, because it means if they have to give him more money, it means he had a pretty good year, and they'll take that every day.
Exactly, and then you're going to know what you're going to get, because really I think Baker Mayfield's, and not to turn this whole conversation to a Baker extension thing, which tends to happen, but really Baker's true test is going to come in 2022, 2023, when the auxiliary parts of this offense start deteriorating and have to be cut because of cap casualties. When Jarvis isn't here, when you probably can't pay your tight end $13 million, when the offensive line becomes a little more aged, and you have to plug in these rookies and they have to step up. That's when Baker will earn his money. But as this really introductory act to and tryout for, are you a franchise problem solver, he's growing into exactly that. And like you said, if he does earn more money, it's because he improved and became worth it.
So you wrote an article recently how Baker Mayfield paved the way for Zach Wilson to become a top 3 pick. Take us through that and just the mindset, what you found out, and take us through that.
Yeah, it was a really fun story to study watching Zach Wilson. I saw parts of and shades of a young Baker Mayfield, absolutely deadly when they're able to roll to their right, extend a play, and deliver a dart. I think Baker Mayfield's off-script ability excitement and ability to drive the ball downfield has really helped GMs look at Zach Wilson and feel confident that he can be a next level quarterback in this league. But most importantly about Baker, I think the lesson is quite clear that you need to have a mature franchise and adults in the room to stabilize any young draft pick you make. And we just talk so much about the quarterback because of how important the position is. So the Jets can't fail Zach Wilson like they failed Sam Darnold, like the Browns almost failed Baker Mayfield. That really was my biggest takeaway.
Ellis Williams, as always, great stuff. Wonderful insight. I'm sure we'll be bugging you next week as we lead into that draft Thursday night, first round, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday night. Ellis, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Be well. Stay warm, y'all.
All right, you too. Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We shift our focus. Ryan Mitchell, voice of the Columbus Clippers, will join us. We will talk about some of the guys down in Columbus trying to get back to the Indians to help out. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. Indians postponed against the White Sox, snowed out, if you will. Snow came a day too late as the Indians did not play well, losing the game last night to the Chicago White Sox. Let's bring in Clippers play-by-play man Ryan Mitchell. Ryan, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Clippers getting ready to open up the season May 4th at Louisville. Take us through what it has been like trying to get ready for a baseball season that starts over a month after spring training breaks.
It's been very unusual. Thanks for having me on. It's been too long since we've spoken. It's very strange because you're watching the major league team play. You see what their needs are. You're seeing these alternate site games, which have been going on now for a couple of weeks. Today we were essentially snowed out as well. The field was covered in snow this morning. But you see what these guys are doing, and it's a long, extended spring training. And at the end of spring training, everybody's ready to get out of there. And now this group at the alternate site has to basically do it again without the pleasant weather of Arizona. So it certainly is a challenge, I'm sure, for these guys mentally to keep sharp and continue to grind so that if the major league team were to need them, they are available. And also to make it look like they are ready to contribute at the major league level and force their way onto the roster. These guys don't want to wait around for an opportunity.
And I got to believe if Bobby Bradley, Daniel John, some of those guys, if they hit, it's going to grab the attention because the Indians are struggling to put the ball in play and get on base.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody knows they're going to pitch, and if they can score 4 runs a night, they're going to win a lot of games, but they're not doing that. Bobby Bradley is a guy that has always hit at the minor league level and hit with power. That's something that they could use. Daniel Johnson is a guy who has always hit, not necessarily with a lot of power, with some, but he's a good hitter to all fields, a smart base runner, can play all 3 positions in the outfield. So these are guys that have had success in spring training. Not a lot has translated to their opportunities at the major league level yet, but they're still very young players. They're still on the top 30 prospect list. So you like what you know of these guys from the minor leagues, but they are going to have to get an opportunity to show it at the major league level. And as you said, with the Indians offense going the way that it has, they may be looking for guys to kind of step in and maybe provide a spark.
When you take into context, there was no minor league baseball at all last year. So now you've been delayed. Some of these guys have not played competitively in almost 2 years. I mean, that's got to be very tough to continue to develop and chase, making the majors when you're not seeing it in games.
Yeah, and there was alternate site stuff a little bit last year, but not much in the way of games with other alternate site teams. So the competitiveness that happens under the lights just isn't there. And there were a whole lot of players, the vast majority of players in the minor leagues, who weren't at those alternate sites last year. So they lost a complete year of development. Some people were really trying to build on something they did last year. Some people were trying to change something over the offseason. So for those players who lost an entire year of development, think 5 years down the road. What might that guy's salary have been as a 5th or 6th year major leaguer had he made that jump? So not only did they lose the ability to develop, but some of those guys lost a lot of ability to maybe make some money down the line.
Who are the guys that you kind of hear buzz about at the alternate site, guys that have kind of opened some eyes and guys to, listen out for that could be, once the games start, that could be kind of forcing their way, towards at least being looked at by the Indians?
Yeah, I mean, the 2 you mentioned, obviously the first 2 that jump off the page offensively. Gabriel Arias is probably a little farther away. I don't know that shortstop is a big need for them right now because they have some guys that can play that position. Somebody that has impressed me with the way he has swung the bat is Owen Miller. He's an infielder that's not as heralded. He is not one of the top prospects according to the ranking services. But boy, he's swung a really good bat. He's shown some power. He's got a little bit of positional versatility as well. And then, of course, Ernie Clement and Nolan Jones. Those are guys that are highly rated prospects that the Indians want to pan out. Are they quite ready? I don't know. We're going to have to see that. They're going to have to show it at the AAA level first. And if they do, they will get their opportunity sooner rather than later.
Nolan Jones is an intriguing guy, young guy, projects as a pretty big power hitter. Have you kind of seen a lot of times when you see a guy swing, you can kind of look at it and go, yeah, there's something there.
Quick bat, really quick bat for Nolan Jones. I haven't seen a ton of his swings yet. He hasn't played in all the exhibition games that we have had, but you like what you see from his swing. And come up as a third baseman, there's some talk about first base. There's some talk about the outfield. The Indians love defensive versatility, but you just like to see this guy hit because I think he's going to be pretty good. You watch his swing, you think that's the kind of swing that can translate. It's not too big. It doesn't take too long to get to the zone or through the zone. I think that's a guy who is going to translate to the major leagues. Like you say, if you've watched enough of these games, you can see some of these guys who have a swing that maybe produce a ton of home runs, but they're against a certain type of pitch and a certain type of count at a certain type of ballpark. And you think, well, once the guy starts seeing off-speed stuff consistently where a guy can spot it, he's going to struggle. Nolan Jones' swing looks very pretty to this point. So not a large enough sample size yet, but it's something to be excited about for Indians fans.
And a young guy, too. That is going to be a younger guy at AAA. You always look at that. When a guy is 21, 22, and he's already AAA and having some success, that's, again, usually an indication, keep an eye on this guy.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, no matter what the level is, if you're one of the younger players at that level, teams look at you a little bit differently. If you are hitting 350 in AA, but you're 25, you're going to be looked at much, much differently than if you're a 19-year-old in your second year of professional baseball, right? So that's a reason why these guys are typically where they are ranked as prospects, is how they're doing at their age level and the level of baseball at which they're playing. So with Jones, it's a big test for him to be playing against AAA competition coming out of spring training. And if he can succeed there, that will give the Indians, I'm sure, a lot of confidence that he can handle advanced pitching. He can handle things defensively. He can handle his assignments. He can be a professional as well, which, not all those things happen for guys at the same time. Some develop at different rates and different aspects of the game. So he is going to get thrown into the fire a little bit with a high level of baseball. And so far, like I said, what I've seen from him looks pretty good. There's some encouraging signs there.
It's interesting you mentioned Owen Miller. That's a guy that Terry Pluto and a number of other guys that were at spring training have mentioned. What do you see with him? What do you like? And take me through a little bit about what you've heard with Owen Miller.
Well, surprising pop. This is a guy that's a mid-teens ranked prospect in the Indian system, which has some guys near the top end that are well regarded all around baseball. So that mid-tier prospect ranking is probably a little bit deceptive because of the system that he is in. If he were in a system that was a little bit more bare, he's probably a top 10 guy. I like his approach at the plate. He takes smart at bats and drives the ball. Now, Huntington Park is not a big ballpark. It's a shorter park down the line, certainly, and to the alleys with the wind, it can get out quickly. But he has shown in just a handful of games so far good power to all fields. He was a triple shy of the cycle the other day in an exhibition game, had another home run yesterday. So he is driving the ball with authority. He's got a very confident approach, it looks to me. When he's in the batter's box, he's not worried. There's not a lot of extraneous movement. He's calm in the batter's box. And, in the field, what little I've gotten to see from him, pretty smooth. I don't know that he's going to make anybody forget Francisco Lindor or Robbie Alomar at second base, but looks pretty good so far defensively. And if you can make all the plays, and as a middle infielder, if you can provide plus pop for that position, they're usually going to find a place for you to play.
Ryan Mitchell, voice of the Clippers. We're going to take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk to Ryan about what minor league baseball may look like at the ballpark. Ryan Mitchell, voice of the Clippers, and I'll be right back here on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking with Ryan Mitchell, voice of the Columbus Clippers. Ryan, minor league baseball coming back. How excited are you? What's it going to look like at the ballpark when you guys get things rolling?
Well, it's going to look different than it has in the past. I was, talking about those alternate site games. I was put into the PA chair for a few games because our regular guy was out, and I guess the tendency or the desire to start calling play-by-play was right there, rather than doing the PA. So I'm very, very excited. It's been a long time. As you know, I've called a lot of different sports and do a lot of things, but baseball is my first love. So it's going to be so exciting on May 4th to get back behind the microphone. The Clippers are going to start off on the road at Louisville, and boy, just to see real games going on, it's going to be a lot of fun. What it's going to look like at the ballpark, our capacity is going to be limited. There's not a percentage put on us anymore, by the governor at least, but we still have to maintain distance in between groups. So right now with these exhibition games, trying to feel our way a little bit into seeing how many people we can get into the ballpark while still maintaining protocols and social distancing and mask wearing and things like that. So the on-field promotions and things like that are going to be few and far between until we get closer to back to normal. But the baseball on the field is going to be the same. So there's going to be distance between the players and the fans. Obviously, those first few rows will not be occupied to allow for the 6 feet distance and things like that. But I think people are just going to be so happy and so excited to get back to the ballpark that some of those things that they've become accustomed to that they're not going to see will be forgiven as long as there's 9 innings being played at the ballpark.
Before I let you go, last thing I'll ask you, we've talked a little bit about the position players to keep an eye out for, to listen out for. It seems like every time the Indians dip down and bring up a pitcher, they're ready to go. Who are some names we should listen out for that are going to be pitching in Columbus that could help out at the major league level?
Well, the guys you think of immediately, Eli Morgan, Scott Moss, guys like that. Giancarlos Mejia is another guy maybe to keep an eye on. And then you go to some of the guys in the bullpen. And there are a lot of new names this year, which, of course, every AAA team is going to see because there wasn't baseball last year. So because of promotions and people retiring and things like that, you're going to see a lot of new names. But guys like Kyle Dowdy and Nick Sandlin that were there last year, they're going to continue to perform and hopefully perform well. Hopefully for the sake of the Indians, they don't need much in the way of help. But from the starting rotation, if Zach Plesac can figure things out, he's had a rough couple of starts, but their rotation looks pretty solid in Cleveland. So you hope, over 162 games, you're going to need somebody. But, Scott Moss is certainly a guy that they think of, and some of these other starters, Dowdy, a starter as well. Those are some of the names to keep an eye on. But, boy, if you're the Cleveland Indians, if your pitching goes south the way the hitting is right now, it could be a long, long summer. Yeah, without question. As always, Ron Mitchell, appreciate the time and the insight. We are, you mentioned it's been a while since we talked. We're going to talk to you pretty regularly. We'll check in with you once the games get going, and you can keep us up to date on who is doing well down in Columbus for the Clippers. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks, Ryan. Anytime. Thanks for having me. All right, Ryan Mitchell, voice of the Columbus Clippers, telling us who to keep an ear out for down in Columbus as they get ready. May 4th is the AAA opener. They will be on the road against Louisville to open that up. Want to remind you, voicemail of Truth and Reason, 216-200-6650. The voicemail of Truth and Reason, 216-200-6650. We want to know who you want the Browns to take at 26 overall with the first-round pick that they have. Who do you want the Browns to take? Leave that on the voicemail of Truth and Reason, 216-200-6650, and we'll listen to some of them this week going into next, as that draft is next Thursday here in Cleveland. First round, second and third rounds will be Friday. That'll do it for this edition for Sports4CLE. We'll see you again tomorrow at 4. Dan Lobby, Browns beat reporter, Tim Bielik, draft expert, scheduled guests. Join us then right here at 4 o'clock. Sports4CLE. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.